Zara stood before the Galactic Empire's high court, her back straight and head held high, despite the chains that bound her wrists. The room was cold and silent, filled with alien officials whose eyes were full of judgment. The court was full, but no one spoke, all of them waiting for the decision that was already decided. Zara had been accused of defying the Empire's orders, of failing in her duty to the Empire. She knew that this trial was nothing more than a show, a way to make an example of her. Her crime was serious. Defying the orders of the Empire was one of the highest offenses. It's punishable by death. Zara had seen many like her fall, but she had always hoped she would escape. Now, she was next. She stood tall and proud, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing her break. She was a warrior, and no matter the outcome, she would not show fear. The judge, an alien with purple skin and sharp eyes, stood and looked down at her. His voice was cold, echoing through the room as he read the charges. Zara, of the Draken clan, you are accused of treason. You defied direct orders in the Battle of Tykra and failed to capture the human rebels as ordered. Your actions have cost the Empire valuable resources and have weakened our forces. How do you plead? Zara's voice was steady as she replied, I plead guilty to defying an unjust order. I refuse to kill innocent lives for the Empire's greed. A murmur spread through the room. The officials were shocked by her boldness, but no one spoke in her defense. The Empire was powerful, and no one dared question it, not even for the truth. Zara had always known this, but she had never imagined she would be the one to stand up. The judge nodded slowly, his eyes narrowing. Then, by the laws of the Empire, your punishment is clear. You will be executed for your treason. The sentence was final. The room fell silent again. Zara didn't flinch. She didn't even blink. It was as if the words meant nothing to her. But as the guards stepped forward to take her away, something unexpected happened. A figure in the crowd stood. The sound of boots clacking on the stone floor filled the room. The figure pushed past the spectators, his movements quick and deliberate. He was a human soldier, one who had served in the Galactic Army. His name was Ethan. Ethan's heart raced as he moved forward. His entire body screamed for him to stop, but he couldn't. He couldn't just stand there and watch her die. Zara had fought alongside humans before. She had saved countless lives, including his. She wasn't the enemy. But in the eyes of the Empire, she was a traitor, a disgrace that needed to be erased, without thinking. Ethan stepped into the center of the courtroom, his eyes locked on Zara. He didn't care about the consequences. All he knew was that he couldn't let her die. I won't let you kill her, Ethan shouted, his voice cutting through the tension. You can't do this. The courtroom erupted in chaos. Guards moved quickly to restrain him, but Ethan was faster. He spun around, knocking one guard to the side and disarming another. His military training kicked in, and he fought with precision, his eyes never leaving Zara's. She stood frozen, stunned by his sudden defiance. Ethan, what are you doing? She whispered, her voice barely audible. I'm getting you out. Of here, he replied, pulling her towards him. Zara hesitated, unsure of what was happening, but she could see the sincerity in Ethan's eyes. Without another word, she let him guide her out of the courtroom. The guard shouted for backup, but Ethan was already pulling Zara through the chaos, his heart pounding outside. The sounds of alarms filled the air. The entire court was in an uproar, but Ethan didn't stop. He grabbed Zara's arm, and they ran, dodging guards and ducking into an alleyway. They had no plan, no escape route, just their instincts and the desperate need to survive. Ethan's mind raced, trying to figure out their next move. Where are we going? Zara asked. Out of breath. To the shuttle, Ethan said, glancing back to make sure no one was following them. We need to get out of here. Fast. They reached a small, hidden shuttle in the parking lot. But just as Ethan was about to get inside, the sound of engines filled the air. The Empire had already mobilized. Warships filled the sky, and dozens of soldiers rushed toward them. We won't make it, Zara said, her voice tight with fear. We will, Ethan said, his jaw set in determination. Get in. Zara climbed into the shuttle first, and Ethan followed quickly, slamming the door shut. As soon as he strapped himself in, the shuttle's engines roared to life. Ethan punched in the coordinates for the nearest escape route, but the Empire's ships were already locking on to them. We need to lose them, Ethan muttered, his eyes focused on the controls. I can't outrun them in this thing. Then we fight, Zara said, her voice calm and steady. She wasn't afraid. She had been in worse situations before. I know how to get us through. Ethan hesitated, but then nodded. Do what? You have to... Zara moved to the back of the shuttle where weapons were stored. She quickly grabbed a plasma rifle and began preparing it for battle. Ethan did the same, pulling a blaster from the compartment. They both knew what was coming. Hold on, Ethan said, pushing the throttle forward. The shuttle surged ahead, the engines screaming as they shot into space. The Empire's ships fired at them, their lasers cutting through the black void, but Ethan was fast. He dodged and weaved through the debris, his hands moving with a speed that came from years of training. Zara fired back, her shots precise, hitting the Empire's ships one by one, but it wasn't enough. The warships kept coming. We need to get to the outer rim, Zara said, her voice strained with concentration. There's a safe zone there. Not leaving you, Ethan said firmly. We'll make it, I promise. The Empire's fleet continued to chase them, their fire growing more intense. But Ethan's resolve only grew stronger. He had made his choice. He'd saved Zara, and now he would fight until the end. Ethan's hands gripped the controls tightly as he pushed the shuttle to its limits, dodging the laser blasts from the Empire's warships. The space outside was filled with bright streaks of light from enemy fire, and the sound of their engines echoed in the cabin. Zara, sitting beside him, stared out the window, her face a mask of concentration. They won't stop until they catch us, Zara said, her voice calm but firm. She had fought in countless battles, but nothing compared to the sheer force of the Empire's military might. I know, Ethan replied, glancing at her for a brief moment before focusing back on the controls. But we're not going down without a fight. The shuttle jerked as another laser hit its side, but Ethan quickly adjusted the flight path, swerving through the debris of old space stations. The Empire's ships were still right behind them, relentless in their pursuit. Every time they gained a little distance, the Empire's warships closed in again, their powerful engines giving them the edge. We need a way to shake them off, Ethan muttered under his breath, his mind racing. He couldn't outrun them. Forever. He had to think of something fast. Zara's sharp eyes narrowed. Take us through the asteroid belt, she suggested. It's risky, but it's our best chance. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. Are you sure that's a good idea? The Empire's ships will follow us right into it? I'm sure, Zara said, her voice steady. They won't be able to navigate the belt as quickly as we can. The asteroids will give us cover. Ethan didn't hesitate. Without saying another word, he steered the shuttle toward the asteroid belt. The shuttle shook violently as they entered the field, massive rocks and debris floating in every direction. Ethan skillfully avoided the larger asteroids, weaving the shuttle through narrow gaps. But the Empire's ships were just as quick, and they followed them into the belt. Firing their weapons at the shuttle, Zara gritted her teeth. She knew the danger, but she also knew they couldn't afford to stop now. With quick movements, she aimed the plasma rifle and fired at the pursuing ships. The bright blue bolts of energy struck one of the Empire's ships, sending it spiraling off course. It wasn't a direct hit, but it was enough to force them to change their course. We're not done yet, Zara said, her voice full of determination. Ethan nodded. His eyes locked on the path ahead. Hang on. The shuttle continued to weave through the asteroid field, narrowly avoiding collision with massive rocks. The sound of the laser fire and explosions echoed around them as the Empire's ships tried to catch up. The tension in the air was thick, but Ethan's focus never wavered. He had to get them out of this. Ahead, a large asteroid loomed in their path. Ethan's heart raced. He had no choice but to go around it, but the Empire's ships were closing in fast. He pushed the throttle forward, hoping they could make it. The shuttle swerved sharply, narrowly missing the asteroid. The Empire's ships, however, weren't so lucky. One of them collided with a smaller rock, causing an explosion that rocked the area. "Nice shot," Ethan said, glancing at Zara with a small smile. Zara didn't smile back. "We're not out of danger yet." She was right. The asteroid field was dangerous, but so was the Empire. The remaining ships continued to chase them, their weapons firing relentlessly. It wasn't long before the shuttle's hull started to groan under the pressure. "We're running out of time." Ethan checked the fuel gauge. They didn't have much left. "We need to find a place to hide. Somewhere they won't look." "Follow me," Zara said, her eyes scanning the surroundings. She pointed toward a small moon on the edge of the asteroid belt. "There's a hidden cave on that moon. We can hide there." Ethan didn't hesitate. He turned the shuttle toward the moon, pushing the engines to the limit. The remaining Empire ships followed them, but they were slower now, damaged and disoriented. From the chaos of the asteroid field, as they neared the moon, Zara's calm voice guided him. "Stay close to the surface. The caves are hidden under layers of rock." The moon was barren, its surface rough and jagged. Ethan brought the shuttle down, just barely avoiding a rocky outcrop. The shuttle landed with a slight jolt, and Ethan quickly shut off the engines. "Are they still following us?" Ethan asked, his eyes wide as he glanced at the monitors. Zara peered out the window. "They'll be searching, but they won't find us here. Not for a while." Ethan exhaled, his tense body finally relaxing. They had made it. For now, at least. But the danger wasn't over. "We'll need to repair the shuttle," Ethan said, standing up. "And then we figure out our next move." Zara nodded but didn't move. She stared at the dark, silent surface of the moon outside the shuttle. "We can't stay here for long. They'll search this area." "I know," Ethan replied. "But we need time to regroup." The two of them spent the next few hours working in silence, repairing the shuttle as best they could. Zara used her warrior training to help Ethan fix the ship's damaged systems, her strength and skill surprising him. He had always thought of her as a fierce fighter, but now he saw just how resourceful she was. As they worked, Ethan couldn't help but think about everything that had happened. Just hours ago, he had been a soldier for the Empire, following orders without question. Now he was a fugitive, wanted by the very government he had once served. But even with all the risks, he felt no regret. Saving Zara had been the right thing to do. Once the shuttle was repaired, they knew they couldn't stay on the moon any longer. They would have to move quickly. But at least they had bought themselves some time. "We'll head for the outer rim," Zara said. "There's a resistance base there. We might find some allies." Ethan nodded. "Let's get moving." The shuttle roared to life once again, and they lifted off into the dark void of space. The Empire was still out there, hunting them. But now, for the first time, Ethan felt like he was truly fighting for something worth believing in. The stars stretched out before them as Ethan and Zara flew through the dark expanse of space. The shuttle's engines hummed softly, and the only sound inside was the steady rhythm of their breathing. For the first time since their escape, they had a moment of peace, but neither of them could forget the danger that still surrounded them. The Empire was relentless, and it would only be a matter of time before they found them again. Zara sat beside Ethan, her expression unreadable. Her eyes, usually fierce and full of fire, were now clouded with uncertainty. She had fought in countless battles, but nothing had prepared her for this running from the very Empire she had once served. Ethan glanced at her, sensing the weight of her thoughts. "We need to talk," Ethan said quietly, breaking the silence. Zara looked over at him, her eyes sharp despite her weariness. "About what?" "About the price we're paying for all of this," Ethan replied. "I've already lost everything, my place in the military, my family, my friends. The Empire will never forgive me for what I've done." Zara's gaze softened, but she didn't look away. "You knew the consequences when you decided to help me. You chose this path, and now we both have to live with it." Ethan nodded slowly, the reality of his decision weighing heavily on him. "I know, but that doesn't make it any easier. I thought I was doing the right thing, but now I'm not so sure." Zara turned to face him fully, her voice firm. "You did the right thing. You saved my life. You gave me a chance to fight back, and that's worth everything. Don't let them make you doubt that." Her words cut through the confusion in his mind. For the first time since the trial, Ethan felt a sense of clarity. He had made the choice to save Zara because it was the right thing to do, not because of anything he might gain from it. The Empire had made him a traitor, but in his heart, he knew that wasn't the truth. He wasn't a traitor. He was a person who stood for something better. "I just wish I knew what to do next," Ethan said, his voice tinged with frustration. "Where do we go from here? What happens now?" "We keep moving forward," Zara replied. "We have to keep fighting. We can't let the Empire win. The rebellion may be small, but it's growing. We're not alone in this." Ethan looked at her, seeing the fire in her eyes once again. Despite everything, Zara remained unbroken. She had lost so much, but she still fought with everything she had. And now, she had brought him into her fight. He couldn't help but admire her strength. "You're right, we can't give up." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their situation hanging between them. The stars outside the shuttle's windows seemed to stretch on forever, an endless sea of darkness. But in the distance, Ethan saw a faint light, something that looked like a small planet. His eyes narrowed as he focused on it. "What is that?" he asked, pointing toward the distant light. Zara leaned forward, scanning the controls. "It's a small colony, not far from here. It's not part of the Empire's territory, but it's a safe haven for those who want to escape." Ethan's heart quickened. "Could we go there? Is it safe?" Zara nodded. "It's not foolproof, but it's our best chance right now. The Empire doesn't know about it yet. We can hide there, regroup, and figure out what to do next." Ethan's mind raced. The colony could be their only chance to survive. But the risk was high. The Empire was everywhere, and they would search every corner of the galaxy to find them. But he had no other choice. He needed to trust Zarin. He needed to trust himself. "Let's go," Ethan said, setting the course for the colony. "We don't have time to waste." The journey to the colony was tense. The shuttle moved steadily through space, but Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every time he glanced at the monitors, his eyes scanned for any signs of the Empire's ships. But so far, there was nothing. Zara sat beside him, her focus unwavering. She was used to danger, used to being hunted. But for Ethan, this was new. His life had been turned upside down, and now there was no turning back. He was a fugitive, a wanted man, with nothing left to lose. As the planet grew larger in the shuttle's view, Ethan felt a strange mix of hope and fear. This could be their sanctuary, or it could be another trap, but they couldn't keep running forever. They had to make a stand. Zara broke the silence again. "Ethan, there's something you need to understand. The rebellion isn't just about fighting the Empire. It's about fighting for freedom. It's about giving people like me a chance to live without fear. It's also about something deeper. It's about trust. The people we meet, the allies we find, they have to trust us as much as we trust them." Ethan turned to her, his brow furrowed. "And what if they don't? What if we don't find anyone who will stand with us?" Zara's eyes softened. "Then we fight alone, but we don't give up. Not ever." Ethan was quiet for a long time. He had always been a soldier, following orders, doing what he was told. But this was different. This wasn't about following orders anymore. This was about standing up for what was right, even when everything around him told him to run. The colony's atmosphere finally came into view. It was a small, peaceful place, a far cry from the chaos of the war. Ethan could see the ships docked at its spaceport, the busy traffic moving back and forth. There was no sign of the Empire. Yet as they approached, Zara sat straighter in her seat, her voice steady. "Once we land, we find allies. We keep our heads down and make contact with the resistance." "We don't have much time," Ethan nodded, his resolve strengthening. He wasn't sure what would happen next, but he knew one thing for certain. He would stand by Zara. They had come this far, and they would go even further together. The colony was a small, peaceful world, far from the reach of the Empire. It had a quiet charm, with fields of green and clear skies. Ethan had hoped this would be the safe haven they needed, a place where they could rest and plan their next move. But the tension in the air was impossible to ignore. He had lived long enough to know that no place was truly safe from the Empire's eyes. Ethan and Zara landed the shuttle in the colony's quiet spaceport. The people here didn't seem to notice or care about the arrival of strangers, but Ethan was alert. He had learned to trust his instincts, and they were telling him that something wasn't right. Zara noticed his unease. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice low. "I don't know," Ethan replied, glancing around. "Something feels off. We should be careful." Zara didn't respond, but placed a hand on her weapon, as if she had sensed the same thing. But together, they stepped out of the shuttle, walking cautiously toward the colony's main square. The buildings here were simple, made of stone and wood, with large windows that allowed the sunlight to pour in. It felt almost too calm, too perfect. As they walked, a man approached them. He was tall, with dark hair and a deep scar across his cheek. His expression was hard to read, but his eyes gleamed with recognition when he saw Zara. "You're here," the man said, his voice low and urgent. "I've been waiting for you." Zara stiffened, her hand instinctively moving to her sidearm. "Who are you?" she asked, her tone cold. The man's eyes darted toward Ethan before locking on to Zara again. "My name is Rylos," he said. "I'm with the Resistance. I know you came for help." Ethan tensed. He had heard of the Resistance, but he had no way of knowing if this man was truly a friend or another enemy. His eyes flicked between Rylos and Zara, trying to gauge the situation. "Why would the Resistance be waiting for us?" Ethan asked, his voice steady but firm. "You knew we were coming?" Rylos nodded. "Zara's reputation precedes her," he said, his voice lowering. "We've been tracking the Empire's movements, and we knew you would eventually need a place to hide. But we didn't expect you to come here so soon." Zara didn't lower her guard. "Why are you helping us?" she asked, suspicion in her voice. Rylos took a step forward. "Because we all want the same thing, to see the Empire fall." Glanced at Zara, unsure of what to make of Rylos's words. He wanted to believe this man, but he also knew that trust was a luxury they couldn't afford. The situation was too dangerous for false hopes. "You should come with me," Rylos said, his tone now more urgent. "There's no time to waste. The Empire won't stay away for long." Zara didn't hesitate. She followed Rylos down a narrow alleyway, with Ethan staying close behind her. They moved quickly, staying in the shadows, away from the watchful eyes of the people. As they walked, Rylos spoke, his voice growing more serious. "The Empire has spies everywhere," he said. "They've infiltrated even the most peaceful of colonies. Can't afford to trust anyone outside the Resistance." Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. He had known the Empire's reach was vast, but hearing it from someone like Rylos made it all too real. It was a constant reminder that they were always being hunted, never truly safe. They arrived at a hidden door in the side of a building. Rylos punched in a code, and the door opened with a soft hiss. Inside, the room was dimly lit, but the walls were lined with equipment and maps. The air was thick with the smell of oil and metal. This was a command center, a place where the Resistance planned their moves. Rylos gestured for them to sit. "We don't have much time," he said. "The Empire's fleet is getting closer, and we need to act now if we want to stay ahead." Zara took a seat at the table, her eyes scanning the room. Ethan sat beside her, his mind racing. He was beginning to feel like they had walked right into the heart of something much larger than they had expected. "We've been gathering intelligence," Rylos continued. "We know that the Empire is planning an attack on a nearby planet. If we can disrupt their plans, we'll be able to slow them down, maybe even cripple their operations for a while. But we need all the help we can get." Ethan frowned. "You think we're the ones to help?" Rylos nodded. "Zara's reputation as a warrior is unmatched, and you—" He paused, turning to Ethan. "You have the military knowledge we need. Together, you can help us make a real difference." Zara's eyes softened as she listened, but there was no hesitation in her voice. "We'll help. But we need your word that you're not working with the Empire." Rylos held her gaze. "I've lost too much to turn back now. Resistance is all I have left." Ethan watched the exchange, still uncertain, but beginning to feel a sense of responsibility. They had come this far. They couldn't turn back. Now Not when they had a chance to make a real impact. Then we're in, Zara said, breaking the silence. Rylas's face broke into a rare smile. Good, we'll need to move quickly. We can't let the Empire get ahead of us. But just as they began to discuss the next steps, the door to the command center slammed open. A soldier in black armor stormed in, his eyes locked on Rylos. You've made a mistake, the soldier said, his voice cold. The resistance is finished. Before Ethan or Zara could react, the soldier raised a blaster and fired. Rylos collapsed, his eyes wide in shock. The room was filled with chaos as the resistance members scrambled to fight back, but it was too late. The soldier had already called for reinforcements. Zara grabbed Ethan's arm. We need to go now, they ran for the door, but the soldier was already blocking their exit. Ethan's mind raced as he tried to think of a way out. The soldier grinned, but before he could fire again, a loud explosion rocked the building. The soldier's attention shifted, and in that moment, Ethan made his move. He lunged, grabbing the soldier and forcing him into the wall. The soldier fought back, but Ethan's training gave him the upper hand. With a final push, the soldier was knocked unconscious. We don't have much time, Zara said, her voice urgent. The Empire's here. Need to get out before they surround us. They ran out of the building, dodging the fire from Empire soldiers. Zara led the way, her movements swift and precise, as if she had done this 1,000 times before. Ethan followed, adrenaline pumping through his veins. The resistance had been a lie. They had been betrayed. Ethan and Zara ran through the narrow streets of the colony, their hearts pounding in their chests. The explosion had sent shockwaves through the building, and now the Empire's soldiers were closing in. The quiet, peaceful world they had hoped would be their safe haven had turned into a battleground. They'll be everywhere, Zara said, her voice tight with urgency. We need to keep moving. The shuttle's not far. Ethan nodded, his eyes scanning their surroundings. The once serene buildings now felt like a trap, every corner a potential danger. They had been betrayed by someone they thought they could trust. The resistance, which had promised safety and support, had turned out to be a lie. They were forced to fight for their survival once again as they turned a corner. They came face to face with a group of Empire soldiers. They were armed and ready, their weapons aimed directly at Ethan and Zara. The two of them froze for a moment, their options running out. Stop! One of the soldiers shouted. Surrender now, and we won't harm you. Zara's eyes narrowed, her hand instinctively reaching for her weapon. She wasn't going to surrender. Not now. Not after everything they had been through. They won't let us go, Ethan whispered, his voice low. There's no way out unless we fight. Zara didn't need to be told twice. She raised her plasma rifle, taking aim at the soldiers. Ethan pulled out his blaster, preparing for the worst. He knew they couldn't win this battle, but they could fight. The first shot was fired from Zara's rifle, a bright blue beam that struck one of the soldiers square in the chest. The soldier crumpled to the ground, but the rest of the soldiers quickly retaliated. The air was filled with the crackle of weapons as they fired back. Ethan moved with precision, his military training kicking in. He fired quickly, hitting one of the soldiers in the leg, sending him to the ground with a loud cry. But there were too many of them, and the odds were against them. Fall back, Zara shouted. She turned and ran, with Ethan right behind her. They couldn't stand and fight for long. They had to get to the shuttle. The soldiers gave chase, but Zara and Ethan were fast. They knew the streets of the colony better than the Empire did. They ducked into alleyways and through hidden passages, using their knowledge of the area to stay. One step ahead, as they reached the edge of the colony, the shuttle came into view. It was still there, sitting quietly waiting for them. Empire soldiers were closing in, and it wouldn't be long before they were surrounded. Ethan, go, Zara shouted. I'll cover you! Ethan hesitated, but Zara's command was clear. He couldn't waste any more time. He ran toward the shuttle, his heart racing, but as he reached the entrance, he heard a sharp cry from behind him. Zara was down. One of the soldiers had managed to get a shot off, and she had taken the hit. She collapsed to the ground, her rifle slipping from her hand. Zara, Ethan shouted, turning back to her. He knew he couldn't leave her behind, not after everything they had been through. He rushed back to her, dodging enemy fire. When he reached her, she was barely conscious, her blood staining the dirt beneath. Zara, stay with me, he said, kneeling beside her. We need to go. You can't stay here. She smiled weakly, despite the pain. It's too late for me, Ethan, she whispered. You have to go. You have to survive. No, Ethan said, shaking his head. I'm not leaving you. Not like this. He lifted her into his arms, ignoring the pain in his own body as he carried her back toward the shuttle. The soldiers were closing in fast, their footsteps growing louder. He couldn't let them catch him, not with Zara in his arms. He reached the shuttle and managed to get inside, Zara still in his arms. The moment he was inside, he slammed the door shut and hit the ignition. The shuttle's engines roared to life, and the ship began to rise into the air. Come on, he muttered, pushing the controls forward. The shuttle shot into the sky, breaking free from the gravity of the planet. Ethan looked at Zara, who was barely holding on. She had taken a severe blow, and she was struggling to stay awake. Her breathing was shallow, and her eyes were fading. Stay with me, Zara, Ethan whispered. You're going to make it. But inside, he knew the truth. The wound she had taken was too serious. There was no way to heal it in time. If they didn't get help soon, Zara wouldn't make it. He set the course for the outer rim, the nearest place where they could find help. But he wasn't sure they would make it. Every second that passed felt like a lifetime. The Empire had to be searching for them, and their shuttle was still too slow. Don't leave me, Zara, Ethan whispered. Again, his heart breaking as he glanced at her limp form. Her eyes fluttered open for a brief moment, and she managed a weak smile. I'm proud of you, Ethan. You did the right thing. You saved me. No, he said, choking on his words. You saved me. You gave me a reason to fight. Zara's smile faded, and she closed her eyes for the last time. Ethan's heart shattered. He had lost her. He had fought for her, risked everything to keep her alive. And now she was gone. With tears in his eyes, he gripped the controls and focused on the path ahead. The battle wasn't over. The Empire still had to be stopped. And he would do whatever it took to finish what they had started. Zara's death would not be in vain. He would make sure of it. The shuttle flew through the cold, silent void of space. The stars scattered like pinpricks of light in the distance. Ethan's hands gripped the controls tightly, but his mind was 1,000 miles away. Zara was gone, and no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't escape the pain that filled his chest. He had failed her. The loss was heavy, like a weight pressing down on him. He had promised to protect her, to help her fight the Empire, and now she was gone. His only companion, his ally. The person who had believed in him when no one else had, she was gone. Ethan's gaze lingered on the empty seat next to him, where Zara had once sat, full of determination and fire. She had been a warrior, a leader, someone who had stood tall in the face of the Empire's cruelty. And now, she was a memory. The mission had changed. It was no longer just about survival. It was no longer just about escaping the Empire's grip. It was about something more, something bigger. It was about finishing what they had started. Was about making sure that the Empire paid for what it had done to her people and to countless others. Ethan wiped a tear from his cheek, his expression hardening. He wasn't going to let Zara's death be in vain. The Empire had taken enough. They had destroyed too many lives, including hers. And now it was his turn to make them pay. He set the course for the Outer Rim, knowing that the Resistance base there would be their last hope. The journey felt long, as if every minute stretched into an eternity. He couldn't stop thinking about Zara. She had been a warrior, a fighter who never gave up, even when the odds were stacked against her. Her death had to mean something. Ours. Past the steady hum of the engines was the only sound in the cabin, but Ethan barely noticed. His thoughts were consumed by his grief and his anger. He had to find a way to honor Zara, to finish what they had started. When the Outer Rim finally came into view, the harsh, rocky landscape of the planet beneath him, Ethan allowed himself a moment to breathe. He had made it. He had kept going, just like Zara would have wanted. But now, he had to make sure they didn't just survive. He had to make sure they won. The shuttle descended toward the planet, and as it touched down, Ethan prepared himself for what was to come. He had no idea what awaited him at the resistance base, but he knew one thing for certain. He wasn't going to stop. Not until the Empire was defeated. He exited the shuttle, stepping onto the rocky surface of the planet. The cold wind hit his face, and he pulled his jacket tighter around himself. The Resistance's base was hidden underground, and as he walked toward the entrance, he could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about bringing an end to the Empire's reign of terror. When he reached the entrance, 2 armed guards stood watch, their faces grim. One of them stepped forward, his eyes scanning Ethan carefully. "You're the one who escaped with the alien warrior," the guard said, his voice low but steady. "We've been expecting you." Ethan nodded, his throat tight. "I'm here to join the fight," he said simply. "I'm here to make them pay." The guard studied him for a moment longer before stepping aside. "Come with me." Ethan followed. The guard into the underground base, the cold stone walls echoing with each step. The base was a small, hidden place, filled with people who were willing to fight for something better. They were the last hope of those who had been oppressed by the Empire. They were the ones who would rise up and bring down the greatest power. In the galaxy, inside, the leader of the Resistance, a tall woman with short black hair and a hard gaze, stood waiting. She didn't smile or offer any words of comfort. She simply looked at him, her eyes piercing. "You're the one who saved Zara," she said, her voice low but commanding. Ethan nodded, his fists clenching at his sides. "I didn't save her. I failed her." The woman's eyes softened, but she didn't say anything. She simply motioned for him to sit. "We're not here to talk about the past," she said. "We're here to talk about the future. Zara's death will not be in vain. She gave everything for this fight. And now, it's up to us to finish what she started." Ethan looked up at her, his heart still heavy with grief. "How do we stop the Empire?" he asked, his voice raw. The woman's expression hardened again. "We hit them where it hurts. We strike at their supply lines, their command centers. We disrupt their operations. And we make them pay for every life they've taken." Ethan felt a surge of anger rise within him. He could hear Zara's voice in his mind, urging him to keep fighting, to never give up. She had believed in this fight. She had believed in the people of the Resistance. And now he had to believe too. "I'm in," Ethan said, his voice steady. "I'll do whatever it takes." The woman nodded. "Good, because this fight is just beginning." Ethan stood, his heart swelling with a sense of purpose. This was what he had to do. This was his new mission. To honor Zara's memory. To fight for the future she had dreamed of. The path ahead would be dangerous, and the road to victory would be long. But Ethan knew now that he wasn't alone. There were others like him, people who had lost everything, people who were willing to fight for freedom. The war wasn't over, but the first step had been taken. The Empire's reign of terror would come to an end. And Ethan, the soldier who had once been a part of the Empire, would lead the charge.